Lately, it seems that genres that were once a thing of the past are seeing a resurgence once more, thanks to numerous indie releases and publishers digging back into their vaults for re-releases, remakes, and remasters. One of these said genres is the beat 'em up. This staple of the arcade scene had been a favorite of many gamers, spawning beloved franchises and characters, and one that is always talked about to this day is Capcom's Final Fight. Granted, it's more due to inclusions in the Street Fighter series these days, but fans still clamor for another installment, even more so due to the success of other IPs getting new games like Streets of Rage and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Final Fight seems like it's been left out to pasture considering that the last new game to come out was in 2006, but before we talk about that game, let's do a little history lesson. Released in 1989, Final Fight was originally planned as a sequel to Street Fighter with the working title Street Fighter 89, before switching gears and becoming a beat-em-up, thanks in part to a certain similar game about dragons and doubling them up or something or other, I don't know. When it hit arcades, it was a huge smash, with home ports released for numerous computers and consoles, the most well-known at the time being the Super Nintendo port, released in 1990 for Japan and 1991 for the US. Of course, now we all know the changes that were made to the Super Nintendo version for censorship reasons, and the fact that the console could only handle 2 playable characters, leading to the revised version Final Fight Guy, with some changes, the biggest being Guy as a playable character, even if it meant kicking Cody out. Then there was the Sega CD version that brought all 3 characters together again with some new and replaced features, along with that CD quality soundtrack. I confess that I didn't have much experience with this version growing up due to not having a Sega CD back then, but I've heard it's a decent port. Thankfully, later ports would be more faithful to the arcade original. Then in 1993, Nintendo owners were treated to 2 different Final Fight experiences. On the Super Nintendo, they received the second installment, complete with 2 new characters along with Mike Hagar returning, while NES players got a chibi-fied remake of the first game called Mighty Final Fight. 1995 would see the 3rd Final Fight released for the Super Nintendo in its final years, and then silence for another 4 years, until Capcom developed a Final Fight fighting game for arcades called Final Fight Revenge, with a Japanese-only Saturn port in 2000. Due to how bad this one was received, it would seem like the series was truly laid to rest. However, this isn't the case. The team behind Revenge, an American development branch of Capcom called Capcom Studio 8, had begun work on Final Fight 7 Sons, which would have had new characters, gameplay, and a more cel-shaded look. It would also have had that camera style that the classic games used. The playable beta seemed to have a positive response in-house, however, Capcom felt that the look of the game wasn't suited for the core audience. At the time, the urban thug life was in, thanks to games like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, so there was an oversaturation of that in the gaming market. And since Capcom did publish the GTA games over in Japan, they wanted a slice of that pie. So 7 Sons was canned, and work began on the, as of now, final game in the franchise, Final Fight Streetwise. Now at the time, I didn't know about 7 Sons, so I was excited to see Streetwise coming out. It looked like it was going to be an awesome blend of open world with that beat-em-up spice. Instead, we got a game that was widely panned by critics and fans. I remember picking up the game at release and not hating it, but now that it's been almost 20 years since Streetwise hit, well, the streets, it's time to head back and take another look. See if there's a misunderstood game underneath the issues, and more importantly, if it's worthy of your big green collection. The story of Streetwise is set many years after the first game and is focused on Kyle Travers, the younger brother of Cody, one of the original heroes. The brothers take part in underground fight clubs earning money and fame. One night after a fight with an opponent that may or may not be related to Bob from Fight Club,
Bob had bitch tits.
Kyle and Cody decide to head to their favorite bar for billiards and beers before Cody tells Kyle he'll meet him later as he has business to attend to. While Kyle is hanging out with his girlfriend Vanessa, he discovers that Cody has been using a new designer drug named Glow that enhances the user's strength, and that Cody's been on it due to his arthritic knees. What happens next takes Kyle through the underbelly of Metro City, fighting old foes, teaming up with old friends, going up against zombie mutants, and a plot twist that I honestly didn't see coming back in 2006, but looking at it now, it's a bit of a stretch. Personally, I didn't hate the story of Streetwise that much. It's nothing new in the sea of thug life games that were out at the time, and it does take some liberties with the lore of the franchise, but it's not immensely horrible. Besides, this game's non-canon anyway, so you really don't have to worry about it ruining the experience. Now, gameplay, on the other hand, is a different machine altogether. You have two modes to choose from. Story, the main course of this deal, has you as Kyle exploring Metro City's 4 main districts: Kyle's Hood, the Pier District, Little Italy, and Japantown. As you go from point to point playing through the story, you not only have random thugs to beat up, but NPCs that can offer you side quests to earn money that can be spent on moves and upgrades at the gym, replenishment items at a liquor store, weapons at a pawn shop, and music to listen to at an electronics store. These quests vary from retrieving items from thugs or playing a few select minigames. There's arm wrestling, car bashing, smashing trash cans in a maze, darts, 3-card monte, slide puzzles, shooting contests, a match card game, fight clubs, and stomping on roaches and mutated rats. Okay. I really want to get into why all this just doesn't fit, but before I do, I want to mention the actual thing you do most in a Final Fight game: fighting, and that's actually not that bad. You have a variety of moves and combos to perform that feel great to pull off, even if some of them don't respond to the button commands when you press them. Plus, you have an instinct mode where the more you attack, the more the instinct bar fills, allowing you to double the damage when you use it. There's also those aforementioned weapons you can use, like knives, swords, bats, guns, and explosives. All in all, I enjoy the combat, but the enemy AI is, well, it's pretty bad. First off, it seems that every hit they pull off on you will knock you to the ground, and since getting up takes way longer than it should, you end up having 4 or 5 enemies gang up around you. An even bigger bonus in this, there's no iframes, so you can die very quickly and not be able to do anything about it. This goes double for the bosses, where some of them have moves that they can just cheese repeatedly with no need to break, making you wonder, how the hell do you beat them? However, this issue hits the hardest in what is one of the most idiotic design levels I've seen in a game. It's a simple premise. There's a part where Kyle and Guy must escape a burning building in 3 minutes, or else you die and have to redo it again. Normally, this isn't a problem. You fight enemies in your way and you get out quickly. The issue comes with the fire extinguisher. You have to grab one and put out fires in your way, which is annoying as hell because it's hard to tell when they're out. You see, the fire is pretty fickle. It can look like it's gone, but when you try to leave, boom, it's back, and you have to waste more time hosing it down hoping that it's catching. This also doesn't help when you have enemies that won't leave you alone when you're doing this. Thankfully, you can throw them into the fire. With the confusing fires and goons hindering you, you end up getting right to the end only for time to run out. It took me at least 6 to 7 tries to finally get this part done, but you want to know the most aggravating offender of Final Fight Streetwise? Worse than crap AI and crap stage design? The camera. For the life of me, I can't fathom this camera choice. It's so zoomed in that even when you slightly pull it back, it's still too close up, making it hard to see around you. This really sucks when you have thugs throwing explosives at you and you can't see them. Oh, and before I forget, Streetwise has, as far as I know, the stupidest way to save a game. You have to quit to save. Yes, you heard that right. You have to quit the game to save the game. Not only that, it has to be at certain hidden checkpoints, otherwise you can lose a ton of progress. Why? Why would you do this? It makes absolutely no sense. Okay, going back to those mini games I was talking about. Are they neat? To a point, sure, but they don't feel like they should belong in a Final Fight game. Okay, the car bashing and can smashing and even the arm wrestling and fight clubs, I can see that, but card games? Shooting? Roach stomping? Darts? It just feels off to me. I know that they needed to beef up a game where the previous entries was just going to the right and beating up everyone, but I felt just having some side missions was okay. We didn't need this extra filler. Hell, in order to get forward in the story, you have to do one of those stomping minigames. So the story mode's a bit all over the place, but what if you just want some good old-fashioned arcade action? Well, there's arcade mode for you. As you play through the story, you unlock more characters and stages for this mode, with 4 stages total and 4 characters to play as for up to 2 players: Kyle, Cody, Guy, and Hagar. This is essentially the devs' attempt at an old school Final Fight. You beat up goons and move to the next area. However, those problems from story mode seep in here and make this almost unplayable. For starters, that enemy AI is even more ruthless here and can burn through your lives in an instant. Honestly, I could only get to the boss of the first stage before I got beat down by a never-ending supply of thugs. Plus, the camera is atrocious as it tends to stay zoomed in on you, making enemies hard to see sometimes. Why couldn't they just go with a classic style camera is beyond me. So now there's an odd and busted story mode and a broken as hell arcade mode. What else is there to do in Final Fight Streetwise? Well, there's bonuses you can unlock as you play story mode, like 3 music videos from bands that have music in the game. Joy. Oh, but wait, there's the original arcade Final Fight. Yes, a nugget of good exists in this. Is what I would have said if I didn't have to tell you that this is the worst port of Final Fight 1 I've ever seen. For starters, the music is terrible. Just listen to it. Also, the frame rate is choppy and there's bugs and glitches. I mean, you've probably seen the little glitch block in the middle of the screen that won't go away as you're watching my gameplay footage. How did Capcom allow this? Do yourself a favor, and if you want to play Final Fight on your Xbox, get the Capcom Classic Collection. It has a better port. On the presentation side, the visuals are just dark and muddy, like Vaseline smeared on the lens muddy. I mean, I know that the developers were told to go urban, but this just looks depressing, especially when you compare it to the Seven Sons footage. Even with the quality of that video, you can see a more energetic and exciting game. Here, Streetwise seems to have this puke green shade that tries to make Metro City look dingy and unsafe, but in reality, it's just like I said, depressing and dark. And I mean dark, even with the brightness up, which, by the way, this is one of those games where there's no real brightness option, you have to change it via your TV. It's still dark. There might be a valid reason for the issues when it comes to visuals though, and maybe even gameplay. As you noticed on the info screen, the Xbox version of Streetwise was not handled by Studio 8, but ported by Secret Level, whose track record has been spotty at best. The PS2 version is the main version, so while it's still not great, it's better than the big green port. For characters, they're about what you'd expect in a game trying to emulate that, once again, urban thug craze of the mid-2000s, which is to say, they're okay. But I'm talking about the ones that are made specifically for Streetwise. The OG characters look, well, sad. Cody reminds me of Johnny Lawrence from The Karate Kid and Cobra Kai. I mean, yeah, he has the knee injury from fighting and he's been in jail, something that was taken from Street Fighter Alpha 3, but here, I keep expecting him to say something that Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite would say, waxing on about the good old days.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin a quarter mile.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Coach would have put me in fourth quarter. We'd have been state champions, no doubt. No doubt in my mind. You better believe things would have been different. I'd have gone pro. In a heartbeat. I'd be making millions of dollars and living in a big old mansion somewhere.
I guess it's not that big of a deal since he vanishes for most of the game and reappears when he's hulked out on Glow. Guy took a very interesting turn in Streetwise though. He's now the leader of the Yakuza in Japantown and is also the reason Cody went to prison as he took the fall for Guy, which is why Guy helps Kyle out since he owes his friend that debt. It's odd to see him in that position since I always pictured Guy as this honorable student of martial arts that helps those in need, not a crime boss. By far though, the saddest change is my boy, Mike Hagar. The once mayor of Metro City and the man who cleaned up the streets several times with his fists is now running a gym at a junkyard at the pier. And as someone in my stream when I was playing this pointed out, was remembered by no one. How do you forget Mike Hagar? So it dawned on me that the best analogy for Streetwise is this. If Final Fight was like Star Wars, then Streetwise is the sequel trilogy. It takes characters you love and changes them in such sad ways that it hurts, and gives you new characters that you really don't care about. Case in point, our main hero, Kyle. He's not only bland and the best example of generic McHero man, but he's just not that great of a character. He spouts off one-liners that just make you groan, doesn't show off much emotion, and is pretty much wooden. Now I know this is coming from a game where you just walk around and smack people, but here's the thing. Final Fight showed more emotion in its intro and ending with just a few images and hardly any voice. Seeing Mike's daughter tied up and damned, taunting him to come get her, Cody and Guy agreeing to help Hagar, and the ending are great examples of doing so much with so little. Streetwise had the benefit of a script, voice acting, and more powerful visuals, and we get this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh yeah. No, don't ignore them. Oh yeah.
This better be good, damn it. Can't you see I'm busy?
I'm looking for someone known as the Stiff.
Ooh, you're not the only one, baby.
Hey, you want another smack?
Nicky Wassell. They call him the Weasel. I think you can see why. 100% grade A slime. Normally I wouldn't bother with such trash, but for reasons that escape me, the little turd's got a bit of a following. Go figure.
Never heard of him. Now get the fuck out.
Uh-huh. And what's this?
That's none of your business. Now get out of here before I,
Before you what? Hey, pardon me, ma'am. This ain't gonna be pretty.
Also, as this leads into the vocal performances, I don't blame the voice actors that much, for it turns out that some of them were people that actually worked on the game, showing that Production Studio 8 not only had to work on a crunch, but with a tight budget as well, it seems. Don't get me wrong, they're still not great, but it's at that level where it's so bad it's good. As for the music, while there are some composed pieces here, like remixes of tracks from the first Final Fight, the majority of the soundtrack is licensed rap and metal, so I can't really play it here, but needless to say, I wish it would have just been an original score instead. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. Final Fight Streetwise is bad, or as I heard in my Twitch stream's chat, this game only has two things, bull and shit. Yeah, there's some good in here, mostly the fighting, but everything else around it is just junk fluff that tarnished what could have been a pretty good beat-em-up. As a fan of the series, it does aggravate me that this is how Final Fight's legacy has ended, and there hasn't been anything new, save for characters and locations in the Street Fighter series, especially when retro-style beat-em-ups are becoming popular again. If Capcom is keen to revive IPs like they say they are, and are doing so, especially with a new Onimusha on the way at the time of this video, then get a small team and make Final Fight 4. Trust me, people would buy it. As for Streetwise, while I can't recommend this game, it's sad that because Capcom wanted that GTA money that Studio 8 had to scrap what looked to be at the very least a fun beat-em-up and quickly cobble together a working game that barely worked. Despite the jank, I can't be mad at them, especially since they got shut down not soon after. Here's hoping that Hagar, Cody, and Guy get one more chance to clean up Metro City once again.